check surveillance. Good God. Put down the George Orwell. Here's a guy who I'm sure has very little to say. He's going to be very quiet about what happened at the Capitol today. No, I don't think so. It's Rob Sampson, Republican State Senate member, District 16, Cheshire, Prospect, Wolcott, Southington, and Waterbury. Rob, good afternoon. Promise me you won't hold back, okay? Will you make me that promise? Is that all right?
You never have to worry about me, Paul. I've got a lot of passion on this issue and a lot of other ones as well.
All right, so Rob, let's and we played some of Steve Harding, your leader's audio heading into this before the news at the top of the hour. So what exactly took place up at the Capitol today, connecting in some way, shape, or form homeschooling, which of course has to have some sort of regulation, and what happened with this tragedy in Waterbury? So explain all this to my listeners.
Well, I will start by saying that the big news is what's going on right now, which is that there are literally thousands of people here at the Capitol singing the national anthem, chanting, and demonstrating effectively in direct response to what the Democrats have done, which is to host what's called an informational hearing about potentially starting to regulate homeschooling in a much larger way than currently happens.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is being done completely outside of the normal legislative process, Paul. I mean, normally you have proposed legislation and you have a public hearing where people are allowed to come and voice their concerns. They have done this in such a way to block out any of the actual voices on the side of protecting homeschooling, and they're trying to connect the dots between what, in my view, is something completely unrelated, which is this tragedy that occurred in the city of Waterbury, where this is not a homeschooled kid. This is a captive, a prisoner. And effectively, it's a failure of government and not a failure of homeschooling.
Yeah, so, I mean, listen, Rob, obviously you had, I guess, one or two visits by the cops, DCF, who first said, well, no, we have no more records. Oh, wait a minute, we found some records. Understood, they go back years. But the guy, Rob, was sadly apparently lost in the system here. So is the whole homeschooling thing just a diversion here? Would I be wrong in saying that, or what? You tell me.
Well, I don't think it's a diversion. I think it is a desired political overreach that is occurring using that as an excuse. Just like anytime there's a shooting anywhere under the sun, you're going to have Chris Murphy sending out, emails to his supporters looking for money. Well, this is the same kind of situation. The Democrats have an agenda, and their agenda is all about power and control, creating a dependent society, and interfering with parents' rights. They want to replace the parents with the government. I mean, that's who the Democrats are. And I think that they just see this as an opportune moment to seize that issue as a mechanism to put more controls on homeschool families, which in my view, they don't deserve more regulation. What they deserve is support, and not suspicion, not surveillance, and not bureaucratic obstacles. These are people that purposely are trying to avoid the government, and I'm in favor of letting them. I mean, they are the boss. Our system works by people being free and electing a representative government that works for them. And the Democrats apparently they haven't caught on to that yet.
You know, Rob Sampson, and I guess the guest is Rob Sampson, 16th District State Senate member. Rob, I remember when this happened, we caught note of this horrible thing. Thankfully, this guy was rescued from years of captivity. We all heard, Rob, from the other side, well, we're gonna investigate what happened, and I heard some of your Democratic colleagues saying, well, we need answers. Well, have you? I don't know, Rob. I'm not in the same circles you are. Have you heard any of that happening at all, or is this just a sideshow? Maybe, hopefully not, to make sure that doesn't happen. Have you heard anything?
Well, I've heard a lot of things. I mean, hard to verify what's accurate, what's really happening. And, frankly, Paul, part of the problem is that because that's a criminal investigation, which is going to go on for some time. I mean, I doubt that trial is going to happen anytime in the near future. I suspect that a lot of what will be uncovered in that investigation regarding what DCF knew and, what they did about it, that kind of thing. We may not find out about that for some time. But for me, I think it's quite clear. There were were certainly people that came forward as a result of that who were aware of what was going on to some level.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, when you've got a kid in school who's picking through the trash, I mean, DCF was aware of this kid. The whole idea that somehow if a child is, connected to DCF in some way, that as soon as they're not part of the public school system anymore, DCF's job is done. I don't think one thing has anything to do with the other. DCF still should have pursued this situation, and I don't think anyone's ever claimed that kid was homeschooled. He was a prisoner, not a student.
Rob, let's shift gears to something that was highlighted by the folks at the Connecticut Mirror a few days ago, and normally we don't see these things till much longer or deeper in the budget process, but it's called a RAD, not a physical RAD, not a little furry friend at the Capitol, but these initiatives, Rob, shall we call these, or policies that make their way into bills. They usually have to do with money. Yet now, what is this one, Rob, to do with benefits that nobody seems to want to admit that they put in there? What exactly happened?
Right. Well, what's funny, Paul, is that, a RAT is usually a small piece of a larger piece of legislation that kind of snuck in where nobody knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a RAT because it's not, roaming the corridors in the dark of night. This is something that was right in front of people, as large as life. And basically what it is, it's an advertisement that the Democrats believe very sincerely in political patronage and protecting their friends. Because they're in power, they control, all three branches of government. They are in a position to start, creating quasi-public agencies and then putting their friends in important high-paying positions. And this is just an example of how they're going to try and continue some folks, maybe health benefits that they have in the legislature when they go on to become some executive in some quasi-public. It's a disgrace. But again, I don't consider it a rat. I know the Mirror called it that. I think it was blatant. And what's important is to note that the vote was on party lines. Every Republican said no. We don't believe in this type of political patronage and abuse of our tax-paying constituents, but they do.
And Rob, finally, while we have you here, the budget process. I know you folks in the GOP did actually issue a printed budget the other day. I know some years it doesn't happen because the folks on the other side literally won't look at it. But any shot for any in this cycle, Rob, any bipartisan talks or chats or negotiation on this or not?
Well, there's certainly always conversations that are going on right to the last minute. The real shame of it, Paul, is that the budget, in my experience, is really drafted in a back room somewhere. Mm-hmm. I used to serve on the Appropriations Committee. I used to serve on the Finance Committee. Worked very hard, worked in a very bipartisan fashion with my colleagues, and we came up with a lot of good ideas. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the work product that we put together ultimately never saw the light of day because it's a couple of lawyers and a couple of, budget gurus in the governor's office and the Senate Democrats that ultimately draft the document that we vote on. And that's a real shame. So I suspect that there are folks, across the building. I know that the House Republicans have offered their own budget alternative, and I think that's a mechanism to try and get the House Democrats to come to the table on some of these things. I don't see any possibility that there's going to be a budget worth supporting this year. I believe the Democrats have too many promises they want to keep to their constituent bases. They take care of state employees first. Mm-hmm. Then they take care of the various, special interests and dependents that they've created. And they grow that year after year, and it's a hard thing to maintain. So in a case like this, I really think it's going to be hard enough just to even get enough municipal aid in the budget to keep it, with something that should keep pace. And I don't see them limiting spending or taxation in any way. I expect a big tax hike.
All right, Rob Sampson. Rob, thanks. Be good. Fight the fight. We'll talk to you later. Thank you, sir.
You can count on it, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right, Republican State Senator Rob Sampson. He represents the 16th District, Cheshire, Prospect, Southington, Wolcott, and Waterbury, and/or sections thereof.